Good day, everyone. Today, we're learning about how culture talks to each other. And also, we'll talk about the low context and high context cultures. But before that, let's define first what is context and communication. For you, what is context and communication? Let's find out. Context in communication encompasses the background, environment, and circumstances surrounding an interaction. It includes underlying factors such as history, social norms, and cultural elements that shape how messages are interpreted. So now let's move on to the next topic, which is the low context and high context cultures. Let's start with low context culture. These are culture where communication is direct, explicit, and relies heavily on verbal languages. In low context culture, people say what they mean and clarity is highly valued. In low context cultures like USA, German, and Switzerland, communication is mostly verbal with less focus on body language, where information is conveyed through words rather than relying on verbal cues. Now, let's turn our attention to high context culture. High context culture, these are culture where communication is indirect, implicit, and relies heavily on non-verbal cues, shared history, and established relationship. They don't always say exactly what they mean. You have to understand the situation, the relationship, and little clues to get the picture. Examples of high context cultures include Japan and Korea, where communication relies heavily on implicit cues, shared understanding, and non-verbal signals, with little emphasis on direct verbal messages.
Pahinga muna. Magpalakas para sa next season.
Alright, and now, I'll be sharing some real-life examples of how people communicate in low context and high context cultures. These two types of cultures differ in how direct or indirect people are when they communicate. A real-life examples of low context culture in Switzerland. And now, we have here a real-life examples of high context culture in Japan. Understanding low context and high context cultures is important because it helps us communicate better with people from different backgrounds. It teaches us to be more respectful and careful with our words and actions. When we understand how others express themselves, whether they speak directly or rely on unspoken messages, we avoid misunderstanding and build stronger relationships. It also helps us become more open-minded and adaptable, especially in school, work, or when meeting new people.
Ako yung problema. Kasi nasasaktan ako kahit hindi naman ako dapat nasasaktan. Sana kaya ko lang face yung sakit na naramdaman ko. Sana kaya ko lang sabihin sa'yo na